Elena Voss stood in the center of the pack hall, the same hall where she had once been crowned Luna, and listened to the words that ended her marriage. Alpha Damien Cole did not look at her when he spoke. He looked at his mother, standing tall by the stone pillar, and at the council members seated around the long table. His voice was flat, practiced, like something he had rehearsed alone in front of a mirror. "The bond is incomplete," he said. "Elena's wolf has not risen in 3 years. A Luna without a wolf cannot lead this pack." Elena wanted to scream that it was not her fault. She wanted to remind him that on the night of their mating ceremony, something strange had happened. Her wolf had reached for him and then recoiled, as if a wall stood between them that had not been there before. She had felt it happen. She was certain someone had caused it. But no one in that hall was willing to listen to a woman without a title. Damien's mother, Countess Miriam Cole, stepped forward with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "The pack needs strength, not sentiment," she said. "Elena has served her purpose. It is time for Blackwood to move forward." Elena looked at her husband one last time, searching his face for any sign of doubt, any flicker of the man who had once promised to protect her. She found nothing. He had already decided. The council had already decided. She was simply the last person in the room to be told. Within a week, Elena was escorted to the edge of Blackwood territory by 2 guards who would not meet her eyes. She carried a single bag with her belongings, and nothing else. Behind her, the pack she had loved for 3 years closed its gates. She walked for 2 days through the forest that separated Blackwood from the neutral lands, surviving on berries and the last of the strength her wolf could give her. On the 3rd day, snow began to fall, and Elena, exhausted and cold, collapsed near a frozen stream just inside the border of Ironfang territory. She woke to the warmth of a fire and the low murmur of unfamiliar voices. When she opened her eyes, she found herself in a small cabin, wrapped in thick furs. A young female wolf shifter sat nearby, watching her carefully. "You are safe," the woman said. "My name is Talia. Our Alpha found you by the stream. He carried you here himself." Elena tried to sit up, panic rising in her chest. Ironfang. The name alone had been spoken with distrust her whole life. Blackwood and Ironfang had been rivals for 2 generations, ever since a border dispute had turned violent long before Elena was born. She had grown up hearing stories about Ironfang wolves as cruel and untrustworthy. The door opened, and a tall man stepped inside, ducking slightly beneath the frame. His presence filled the small cabin immediately, not because he was intimidating, but because he carried himself with a quiet, steady confidence that Elena had never seen in Damien, even at his proudest moments. "You're awake," he said simply. "I'm Kane. This is my territory. You're safe here, whether you believe that or not." Elena studied him, waiting for the cruelty she had been taught to expect. It never came. Instead, Kane pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down, his golden eyes calm and patient. "I know who you are," he said after a moment. "Elena Voss, former Luna of Blackwood." Elena's throat tightened. "Then you know I don't belong here." "You don't belong anywhere Damien Cole decided to send you," Kane said. "That's different from not belonging here." She did not know what to say to that, so she said nothing, and Kane did not press her further. He stood, told her to rest, and left the cabin without asking anything in return. In the weeks that followed, Elena expected to be sent away once she had recovered. Instead, Kane offered her a place within Ironfang territory, not as a prisoner or a burden, but as someone under his protection. He asked nothing of her loyalty and nothing of her past. When she finally told him the truth about the night her wolf had gone silent, he listened without interrupting, his jaw tightening only slightly at the mention of Damien's mother. "That does not sound like a broken bond," Kane said quietly. "That sounds like a blocked one. What do you mean?" "There are old forms of magic that can suppress a wolf's connection to its mate," he said. "Rare, difficult, but not impossible for someone with the right knowledge and the right motive." Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. Why would anyone do that to me? Kane's expression darkened. "Ask yourself who benefited most from you losing your place as Luna." The answer came to her slowly, painfully. Serafina Ashgrove's family had wanted an alliance with Blackwood for years. Countess Miriam had never approved of Elena, an ordinary wolf from a small pack, standing as Luna beside her son. If Elena's wolf had been silenced deliberately, it would have cleared the path for exactly the marriage that followed. That night, Elena did not sleep. She sat by the fire in the small cabin Cain had given her, turning the truth over and over in her mind. She had spent 3 years believing she was broken. She had spent 3 years accepting blame that was never hers to carry. Something shifted inside her that night, quiet but powerful, like ice beginning to crack beneath the surface of a frozen lake. Over the following months, Elena remained in Iron Fang territory, and slowly, carefully, she began to rebuild herself. She trained with Talia and the other pack members, learning to fight, learning to read pack law, learning things Blackwood had never bothered to teach her, because Luna was expected only to smile and stand beside her alpha. Cain oversaw much of her training personally, correcting her stance, teaching her patience, never once treating her as fragile. "You have more strength than you know," he told her one evening after a long training session. Damien never saw it because he never looked. Elena laughed softly, though there was little humor in it. "And you see it?" "I see it every day," Cain said, and something in his voice made her chest ache in a way she did not fully understand yet. As the months passed, Elena noticed changes within herself that went beyond physical strength. Her senses sharpened, colors seemed brighter, sounds clearer. And whenever Cain was near, she felt a warmth beneath her skin that she recognized, with growing certainty, as the stirring of her wolf. It happened fully one evening in early spring, beneath a canopy of stars, when Cain found her sitting alone at the edge of the training grounds. He sat beside her without a word, and for a long while, neither of them spoke. "I used to think something was wrong with me," Elena finally said, "that my wolf simply never wanted a mate. And now? Now I think my wolf was waiting," she said, turning to look at him. "For the right one." Cain's eyes held hers, steady and unguarded. "Elena." Before he could finish, a warmth surged through her chest, spreading outward, until her whole body seemed to hum with new energy. Her wolf, silent for 3 long years, rose within her fully awake, recognizing in Cain something Damien had never given her: unconditional respect. Cain felt it too. His breath caught, and for the first time since she had known him, Elena saw something close to wonder cross his composed features. "A true bond cannot be forced," Cain said softly. "It also cannot be blocked forever, not against 2 wolves who are meant to find each other." They did not rush what followed. Elena needed time to trust herself again, and Cain, patient as ever, gave her that time without hesitation. Their bond grew not from a ceremony or a political decision, but from a year of honesty, trust, and quiet devotion neither of them had expected to find. Meanwhile, word had reached Blackwood that Elena Voss was alive and thriving under Iron Fang protection. Damien's marriage to Serafina, meant to secure his pack's future, had instead brought him nothing but distance and duty. Serafina, herself pressured into the union by her own family's ambitions, felt no true connection to Damien, and he felt none in return. The bond between them remained hollow, a partnership of convenience rather than love. When Damien learned that Elena had not only survived, but had formed a genuine mate bond with Cain Ironfang, his rival for as long as he could remember, something close to panic set in. It was not love that drove his reaction, not truly. It was the unbearable realization that Elena, the woman he had discarded so easily, had found in his enemy everything he himself had failed to offer her. Damien called for a formal pack summit, citing unresolved matters of Elena's former status as Luna. In truth, he wanted to see for himself whether the stories were true, and perhaps, in some hidden corner of his pride, he hoped to reclaim some measure of control over a situation that had slipped entirely beyond his reach. Elena agreed to attend, though not out of any desire to return to Blackwood. She wanted the truth spoken aloud, in front of the council that had cast her aside without a single question asked on her behalf. She arrived at the summit with Cain at her side, not as a broken exile seeking mercy, but as Cain Ironfang's true mate, her bearing calm and certain, her wolf fully present within her for the first time in Blackwood's halls. Whispers spread through the gathered crowd the moment she entered. Gone was the uncertain young woman who had once struggled to find her place. In her stead stood someone whose quiet strength was impossible to ignore. Damien rose from his seat, his expression unreadable. Beside him, Serafina watched with quiet, guarded curiosity. "You look well, Elena," Damien said carefully. "I am well," she answered. "No thanks to this pack." Countess Miriam stiffened at the head of the council table, but Elena did not look away from her. "3 years ago, I was told my wolf had failed to rise," Elena said, her voice steady and clear enough to carry through the entire hall. "I was told I was unworthy to stand as Luna. I believed it, because I had no reason not to. But I have since learned the truth. My wolf did not fail. It was suppressed, deliberately, by someone who benefited greatly from my absence." Murmurs spread through the hall. Damien's gaze shifted uneasily toward his mother. "I have proof," Elena continued, nodding toward Kane, who produced documentation Ironfang scholars had gathered on old suppression bonds, along with testimony from a retired Blackwood healer who had once been ordered to keep silent about unusual magic present at Elena's mating ceremony. The healer, now free from Miriam's influence and living safely under Ironfang's protection, stepped forward and confirmed what Elena had said. The hall fell into stunned silence. Countess Miriam's composure finally cracked. "I did what was necessary for this pack's future," she said, her voice sharp with defensiveness rather than remorse. "You did what was necessary for your own ambitions," Elena replied evenly, "and you let your son believe the woman he had promised to protect was broken, rather than admit what you had done." Damien said nothing for a long moment, his expression shifting through disbelief, anger, and finally something that looked almost like grief for the years he could never reclaim. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "Is this true, Mother?" Miriam did not answer, and her silence was answer enough. The council, furious at having been deceived for years, moved quickly to strip Miriam of her seat and her influence within Blackwood. Serafina, who had never wanted the marriage in the first place, saw an opportunity for freedom and took it, quietly negotiating a peaceful end to a union built on nothing but political convenience. She returned to her family's pack within weeks, relieved rather than heartbroken. Damien was left to face the full weight of his mistake alone, watching as Elena, the woman he had once cast aside without a second thought, turned and walked out of Blackwood's hall beside Kane Ironfang, her head held high, her bond bright and unshaken. There was no cruelty in her departure, no desire for revenge beyond the truth she had already spoken. Elena did not need Damien's guilt to validate her worth. She had already found it, quietly and completely, in a place she never expected to call home. In the months that followed, Elena and Kane formalized their bond before both their packs, a union built not on politics or convenience, but on genuine respect and trust. Ironfang and the smaller allied packs that had long distrusted Blackwood's leadership found new strength in the alliance, one built on honesty rather than fear. Blackwood, meanwhile, entered a long period of quiet reckoning. Damien remained alpha, but without his mother's guidance, without a wife who wanted him, and without the Luna he had once dismissed so easily, he was left to rebuild his pack's trust, one difficult decision at a time, understanding at last the true cost of the choice he had made 3 years before. Elena never returned to Blackwood again. She did not need to. Standing beside Kane, surrounded by a pack that had seen her worth from the very beginning, she had already found everything Blackwood had once failed to give her, a place where she belonged, fully and completely, exactly as she was.